Hey guys, today on popular request, we are comparing one Sonos 5 against a pair of Sonos Play ones, or the Sonos 1, Gen 1 or Gen 2. So if you have $500 to spend, where is it better spent? Buying one of the Sonos 5 or a pair of the Sonos 1s or the Sonos Play ones? Let's find out today. So before we go on to the rest of the videos, I would like to state that I actually had a pair of the Sonos 1s and they were the Gen 2s of the Sonos 1s. I also had a Haze edition, which is the Sonos Gen 1, and I have this pair of Sonos Play 1s in front of me here. Acoustically, they all sound very similar. Without very close listening, you aren't actually able to tell the difference between the speakers at all. So I decided to save some money. I sold the Haze edition and I sold the Gen 2 of the Sonos 1s. And I kept the Sonos Play 1s with me. So for all intents and purposes, for the sake of comparison, acoustically, both the Sonos 1s and the Play 1s are going to sound similar. So in my usual fashion of doing my videos, I like to give you the answer up front. Go for the Sonos 1s. If you can get the Play 1s, they are acoustically the same. Save a bit of money, buy a pair of them. Or go for the Gen 1s or the Gen 2s, it doesn't matter. The Play 1s or the Sonos 1s is going to do better in stereo configuration than a single Sonos 5. The Sonos 1s are going to be very versatile. The sound is still great as long as they are in a stereo configuration. Now don't just go out and buy one and you end up having to spend another trip to buy another one just to pair it up. Go straight and get a pair of them. Of course, if the option is open to you and budget is not a concern, buy a pair of the Sonos 5s. It will definitely sound better. But today, for the purpose of the discussion, $500, buying the Sonos 5s or the Play 1s or the 1s, go for the 1s. Get a stereo pair for $400 or less, you're going to get a much better experience. So if you don't have the time to carry on watching the video, end here, go out, get a pair of the Sonos 1s and you'll be very happy. But if you've got time to stay around, I'd like to explore the comparison in depth in a few aspects, actually 3 specific aspects. One is the features, second is the sound, and third, the rabbit hole of Sonos upgradability. Stay on to find out more. Now let's talk about the feature set. The standard feature set, the standard software aspect of the Sonos ecosystem, the S2 platform, is going to be similar for the Sonos 5s or the Play 1s or the 1s. So that, let's take it out of the equation. It's a great set of software. You will be happy using it. It connects to almost all streaming services that are available to you. So let's keep that out of the equation and we go into the feature set on the hardware aspect of the Sonos 1s, the Play 1s, as well as the Sonos 5s. Now let's talk about the Play 1s first. The best feature of the Sonos 1s is the price. If you go for the Sonos 1 SL, the one without the mic and therefore no virtual assistant, no Google, no Alexa, that will only cost you $180 for one and $360 for a pair of them. If you go for the Sonos 1 with the mic, that's the one that will cost you $200 for each and $400 for a pair. So the $400 is $100 less than the Sonos 5. So if you call it a feature, cheap is one of the features. But of course, because you're getting a physical pair of it, you can place the speakers a distance apart. And with that placement, you're going to get true stereo imaging. You're going to get real soundstage. We'll talk about the 5s in a while in that aspect, but the 1s, true stereo. And they are small. If you look at the size, it is probably going to be about a third of the size of the Sonos 5s. So in terms of placement and flexibility of placement, it is easy to place the Sonos 1s or the Play 1s. And as I've mentioned before, you actually can get the virtual assistants on the Sonos 1s, as long as you don't go for the Sonos 1 SL. So the Sonos 1 can use Google Assistant as well as can use Alexa. Now, when you do get sick of listening to the Sonos 1s or the Play 1s in stereo, the flexibility remains that you can actually unpair them, put them in 2 separate groups, and you can have 2 zones. You can put one in the bathroom, one in the bedroom. You can deploy them across the whole house. That you cannot do with a single 5. Now we come to the feature aspect of the Sonos 5. The Sonos 5 has 6 drivers. There are 3 woofers and 3 tweeters. The tweeters at the top, the ones to the corners, they are actually angled out quite aggressively. So from one single Sonos 5 enclosure, for this $500, you are actually going to be getting some sort of a stereo image. It's just that it's all going to originate from within this 40 centimeters. And The soundstage is not wide, but you do get stereo. And one of the things is that this guy, the bass is really strong, but I'll refrain from touching on the bass because that's more on the sound side of it. So in terms of feature set, let's leave that later. The next feature that this guy has that the Sonos ones or the Play ones wouldn't have is the line-in jack. So there is a line-in jack where it takes a 3.5mm phono input. This 3.5mm you can actually output from your phone if it still has a 3.5mm output, as well as you can pipe music from any MP3 player, or you can even pipe music from your turntable through a 3.5mm output, as long as you have one of those RCA to 3.5mm phono plug. One more feature, which I won't call it a full-fledged feature, is that you can actually connect this to your computer or your TV screen if it has a 3.5mm output. But if you're trying to do anything except listen to music, you will get a lip sync issue. This speaker introduces a delay when it's trying to process incoming analog. So your screen, the explosion is going to go off, and then 70 milliseconds later, the explosion is going to sound off. So that irritates me. I wouldn't recommend anyone do that, but if that kind of thing is okay with you, in a pinch, you can get sound out of your TV or your computer screen, as long as you're not trying to game. So there are many other aspects of these two feature sets which will cut across both of them. Like for example, you can use both of them as rear surround channels in your home theater setup. So in that aspect, I wouldn't touch too much about it. It is just then down to a matter of which one you prefer. So the last point I'm going to touch about for the Sonos 5 is the True Play feature. For some reason, True Play acts very actively on the Sonos 5. It pulls down the bass quite substantially. The Sonos 5 on itself is quite the bass machine. It puts out a lot of bass, both in the low end as well as in the mid bass region. And you will hear that sometimes it is overpowering probably your room, especially if you put it against the wall or into a corner in this space like this. So True Play, when it listens to that, it actually tries to pull down the bass very significantly. So if that's your kind of thing, I would say that True Play has a lot of dynamic range to play around with on the Sonos 5. Not so much for the Sonos ones or the Play ones. I'll explain that in a bit when we touch on the sound. So next, the sound. I've done frequency sweeps. I've measured the frequency response of both this setup, the Sonos 5 on its own, as well as the Sonos Play ones. And I've also done True Play. I seldom do True Play in terms of comparison videos, but today I did, just so to tell you how much True Play affects either of these setups. So I'm going to put up my graphs here. The graphs up here, they will be comparing the Sonos 5s in a single configuration and the Sonos Play ones in stereo setup configuration. So first up, this chart here, the Sonos Play 1 stereo in dark blue and the Sonos 5 in dark red. Now, straight away, if you look at the low end response, the dark red portion, this is the Sonos 5. The bass you're going to be hearing, you're still going to be hearing something even when it dips to 25 Hertz. Whereas for the Sonos Play ones, I think about 45 to 50 Hertz is when it starts dipping to the same levels as the Sonos 5 at 25 Hertz. In terms of bass response, you are not going to best the Sonos 5 with the stereo Play ones setup. Somewhere between 70 to 150 Hertz, actually, the Sonos Play ones is actually putting out more output. It is kind of strange. You actually do hear a bit more presence in the mid bass range and maybe in the male vocals for the Sonos Play ones. For the Sonos 5s, it's slightly more subdued, but after that, in the higher frequency range, it's a mixed bag. You know, one overtakes the other, and but it still remains relatively flat for the rest of the curve. So based on this chart alone, I would say if you are a bass monster, if you need bass in your music, this is a configuration that you should go for. The Sonos 5 is the one that you need to buy. But if vocals is more your thing, if sound staging is more your thing, which cannot be shown by this chart here, then my suggestion, like I said in my earlier upfront summary, is to gun for a pair of the Sonos Play ones. That gives you the kind of music, the kind of staging, the kind of sound stage and the stereo imaging that you want out of music. For me, I have a pair of ears, I want a pair of speakers. I don't like single speakers. So like I explained earlier in my video, I usually don't do True Play. For purpose of today's video, I actually did True Play and I measured the response of the Sonos Play ones before and after True Play, as well as the Sonos Fives before and after True Play. Let's take a look at the chart for the Sonos Play ones before and after True Play. Here you go. So the dark blue is the Sonos Play ones before True Play. And the light blue line that you see up here is the Sonos Play ones after True Play. Now you can look at the bass region. It's not that it's lifting up a big deal, but it actually improves the bass response quite significantly below 60-70 Hz. There is more bass coming out of the Play ones after you do True Play. So in that aspect, this feature, this True Play feature, benefits the Sonos Play ones tremendously. Not so much for the Sonos Fives, which I'll explain in a bit, but the Play ones, the stereo pair, benefits tremendously from True Play. Now, True Play also does something else. If you look at a higher frequency from about 800 Hz onwards, you'll see that it actually lifts the response for the treble, the higher frequency for the Play ones as well. So True Play is a godsend feature. I've done a video before on whether True Play manages to save the very old Sonos Play ones, and yes, they do. True Play is a feature that was implemented after they launched this speaker. They rolled the feature out to the Sonos Play ones, and they've got a new lease of life. I can't bear to let go of these guys. Okay, so for the next chart, we're going to look at the frequency response curve for the Sonos Fives before and after True Play. Now the dark red curve is before True Play. You'll see a hum right about 100 Hz or so, which is of course a smaller hum than the hum in the Sonos Play ones, but a hum nonetheless. But if you look at what True Play does, which is the light red line, it pulls down that hum quite significantly. In fact, I would dare say it even dips it to below levels I'm comfortable with. It doesn't do much on the bass. The bass is already tremendous coming from a single Sonos Fives, but that hum, that response in the mid bass range has been tempered down significantly by True Play for the Sonos Fives. For the rest of the frequency response range, you will see that it pulls it down a little bit here and there, but nothing significant. True Play does not do as much for the Sonos Fives as it did for the Sonos Play ones. Okay, so after you do True Play, let's look at the True Play comparison of the chart between the Sonos Play ones and the Sonos Five on its own. And this is the chart. I've taken away all the lines, now only left the light blue line, which represents the Sonos Play ones after True Play, and the light red line, which is the Sonos Fives after True Play. Now, if you take a look at it, the peak at about 100 Hz, that range, the mid-bass range, is still going to be present on the Sonos Play ones. It gives it a lot more volume, a lot more sound, but not so much bass, right? The bass for the Sonos Fives, even after True Play, before True Play, you're going to see that it's going to walk all over the Sonos Play ones. But you will then realize that the higher end, the frequency above 1 kHz is going to be owned by the Sonos Play ones. That gives the soundstage a very open soundstage. The presence of the Sonos Play ones coming from these two small speakers, you just won't believe it, especially after True Play, which is why my recommendation of getting a pair of the Sonos Play ones as opposed to just getting the Sonos Fives, even if you have $500 to spare. So quite a bit of how you choose speakers depends on how you listen to music as well. Now, if you ask me if you're going to be using these speakers, this setup for background music, you're just going to be putting it at a corner of your house, of your room, just to pipe in some sound to your workspace or to your home, then I guess one of this speaker, the Sonos Five, is great. It will put out some very big sound, and there's some kind of stereo imaging. Although as background music, it probably won't matter. So I'll say, go for the Sonos Five. It is a big sound. It goes loud. The Sonos ones or the Play ones won't go as loud as a single Sonos Five. So you got to bear that in mind. But if you're in for some sort of critical listening, you want a soundstage, you want a stereo image, then you have to go for a pair of the Sonos ones or the Play ones. Now the last point that I'm going to touch on to help you decide which to buy is that of the rabbit hole of Sonos. Sonos has created this rabbit hole, right? That if you buy one of their products, you're going to end up thinking about, hey, what if you add this? What if you add that? And before you know it, you're going to have 10 of Sonos speakers lying around your house. And right now, I probably have more than what I can use them for. I have to turn them off at different times because I just can't listen to all of them at once. Now, on that point, if you're going to be buying a Sonos 5, what it allows for is the option for you to spend another $500 to bring the total up to $1,000 to put this in stereo configuration. Now, if you think that you're going to fall into that rabbit hole at some point in time, then get the Sonos 5. Because when you double your budget and spend $1,000, that setup, in my opinion, is the pinnacle of Sonos performance. The stereo imaging, the sound, the bass, the treble, the response, everything about that setup in a stereo pair of the Sonos 5 is great. You don't even need a sub. If you're interested, look at my Sonos 5 playlist. I'm going to link it up here. Go through all the videos. You'll see what I'm talking about. I will show you why I think the Sonos 5 might be the one to go for if you think you're going to fall into the Sonos rabbit hole. For all those of you who know what I'm talking about, have fallen into the rabbit hole, leave a comment down below. We are the Sonos Anonymous Club and chat below. See you there. For the Sonos Play ones, or the ones, your future path to upgrading is actually the Sonos Sub. But that Sonos Sub is going to cost you $700. $700 plus a pair of these at $400 is $1,001. And I dare say that that configuration puts you very close, within spitting distance of the performance of a pair of Sonos 5. But it gives you the advantage of yet another step into the rabbit hole of buying a Sonos soundbar, be it the Beam or the Arc, or you can get your hands on the Play Bar or the Play Bass to pair all of that into a 5.1 or an Atmos sound system. And that is a deep, deep rabbit hole. I can't actually tell you which is the better way to go. If you are more into music, go for the Sonos 5. If you're possibly going to get into home theater and you want to be ready for that, get the Sonos ones. By the way, these Sonos ones have been with me amongst all my Sonos speakers, probably one of the longest, besides the Sonos Sub, I think. Or maybe I got them, I've had them the longest. And they have done surround sound duties in the home theater setup. They've done bathroom duties as well. They've done bedroom duties. They've done stereo duties. They are versatile. So if you stayed on throughout the whole video, while I was being very, very clear up front to recommend the Sonos Play ones, actually now I'm not so sure which one I'm going to ultimately recommend. It really depends on your particular use case. If you are up for a discussion, do comment in the comments section below and let me try to help you out. I have been relatively busy, but during weekends, I'll catch up on my comments and I'll see you in my next video.